And then it'll like zoom out, and then it's just you and I and sitting here, and we start the show.
I see what you're saying. The thing is, though, if nobody saw the last episode, or if people didn't see the last episode, they're not going to get the arm thing.
People posted about it in the comments. I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah, there was like 3 comments. What are we talking about today, Ian?
We are going over a couple extra stratagems that we didn't cover last time.
Okay, sweet.
That definitely need to be addressed. I am Ian. This is Space Marine Steve.
Hello.
Welcome to Hyperspace Hobbies. Let's get into some stratagems.
But first, before we do that, if you love what we do here, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, join the conversation that we're having here at Hyperspace Hobbies about 40K.
If we get to 5K, I might show you my arm again. Let's start it off with something that you've used against me 100 times, and you've used it in the best scenarios ever.
Grenades! Grenades might actually be one of the best strats in the game, in my opinion.
Just the way it's worded, the first time I read it, I didn't fully understand the depth of when you can use grenades.
It's basically all the time. Here's the silly thing about that. If you're scanning this like we are, it doesn't actually say eligible to shoot.
No, it just says before that unit
Is selected to shoot.
selected to shoot.
There is a little bit of ambiguity here, and I would always err on the side of caution whenever there is ambiguity, and I would definitely double check with TOs whenever you're at tournaments. However, it doesn't actually say that you have to be eligible to shoot to do this. It's just before you're selected to shoot. GW rule writing does start to kind of like show some of its weaknesses, because it probably should say eligible to shoot.
Almost certainly
Right?
That's what they meant it to say.
It's
But
totally.
because it does not, there's many scenarios where you can get away with throwing grenades where you can't even shoot at all.
Yeah, totally. You
Like
just
after you advance, you can still throw a grenade with any unit that has a grenades keyword.
fall back.
Fall back and throw a
Yeah.
grenade, which actually like thematically makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Because you would kind of be like, okay, we're clearing out of here. Somebody pulls a pin, throws it at their feet, and runs off while scattering the opponent.
Yeah, and it does cost a CP to do, so I do understand, like, you know, why it should be good. Something that I love doing with it is hucking a grenade and then doing actions.
Yeah.
Right? When I was playing against Mike the other night, I used a squad of scouts, and I, like, walked them forward. They hucked a grenade and then cleansed the objective.
Yeah. The fact that it doesn't take up your shooting.
Yeah, doesn't
It's
do
such
anything.
a tricky wording on grenades.
It's really crazy.
And a special shout out to the best grenader in the game, a Land Raider.
Hilarious.
Because it's got these little, what are they called? Like, are they just grenade packs or assault
No,
packs?
I believe they're assault launchers.
They're on the front of the tracks.
Yeah.
Assault launchers.
It's
yeah.
only on 2 of them, though. The Godhammer pattern Land Raider doesn't have it, but the Redeemer and the Crusader both have it. So it gives them the grenades keywords. So what you can do is you can pull the Land Raider like right up into the middle of the table.
Yep.
You spend a CP and huck grenades with it, which is hilarious. And then what you can do is you shoot all its weapons, of course. You've hopefully killed a lot, but then in the charge phase, you can like charge with it and then tank shock, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later. And you can tank shock and do so many mortal wounds in one turn with a Land Raider. It's like...
It turns into an absolute mortal wound beast.
It's a great keyword to have, and so many units have it. And the second that it has that grenades keyword, that unit goes like up in its efficacy like crazy.
They now have an infinite ability to punch up.
They do, yeah.
So things like that you're worried about, there's Satan shards running around that are a huge pain. The Dread Knights currently are a problem. Monoliths, you can see monoliths on a couple tables. All those big greater demons, you can just score free mortal wound damage on those guys. Some of them have feel no pain. It's going to be a bother anyways. But you can take a single scout and do potentially 6 mortal wounds to a monolith.
Absolutely wild.
So make sure you use grenades to punch up. And it works so well whenever you're in a time of crisis.
It does. And there's even some units in the game, like Death Guard, have that one character that can do grenades for free.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a grenade toting character. So he goes inside Plague Marines, so you can like get them out and then you can run up. You can spend a CP on one unit, grenades, and then if you have the other one, you can 0-1 out and then hit grenades again. It's really good.
Yeah, that's really strong.
And he's really cheap. He's like 50 points or something like that.
The next stratagem on our list is tank shock.
Oh,
this is one of my favorites, as I love doing it with a soul grinder. They happen to be strength 16, which means they are always beating out the toughness of your opponent. And so they're throwing 18 dice looking for those mortal wounds. It's almost
so
a
good.
guarantee.
Yeah, almost.
And then they get to throttle whatever they just charged in combat. But it works a little bit differently than how you might think. Let's say you really want to get into combat with Bulbasaur. What you can actually do is avoid the long charge that you're probably not going to make and charge the aggressor and tank shock. Tank shock happens at the end of the charge.
Yeah.
So if you manage to remove this aggressor, then you can pile in for the start of your assault phase.
And the way that the rules are written in 10th edition is you don't actually have to fight the thing you charged, right? Where in a lot of previous editions, like, so if you're still suffering from edition lag, like 10th edition is still very fresh. This is one of the first editions, I believe, where you're able to actually fight something, like anything that is within range of you, not just like the one thing that you charge. So that tactic's great. If that one unit is like just gentle enough or just weak enough that you're able to kind of like power through, you could get like 2 kills off.
And you can get you farther onto objectives and steal objectives away from your opponent by risking a charge and then using your pile-in to take the objective away.
Yeah, it's great.
So that one is like pretty top tier for me. And if you're anything with a decent if you're any vehicle or walker with a decent close combat weapon, you're going to trash.
Yeah.
Like our orc players out there with the Def Roller.
Oh, yeah, the Def Roller, because it's strength, I believe, 9.
Yeah.
So you get 9 or strength 10, or one of those two. So you usually will always get the +2 to the extra dice. Basically, if it's a walker and it has some kind of close combat weapon, just always do it, because the walkers are usually strength 10 or 12, right? Like, I mean, just today I got tank shocked by a Death Dread, and it was like 14 dice, take mortal wounds, right? Love it. So it's a lot, and yeah, it caps out at 6, but if you have high enough strength that you can almost on average like guarantee 6 mortal wounds on something, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Again, it's a way to take a unit that these guys are already good in combat, but you can make a unit punch up. Like, you can have a Rhino do more damage than what you're expecting.
Yeah.
Even stuff like that. Even if it's just a weak, like this guy, let's say potentially this guy's on 3 wounds and you got your Rhino and you go, I have no way of dealing with it. He is going to ruin my game if I don't deal with him right now.
Yeah.
Charge it with a Rhino and just go for the tank shock.
And away you go.
And you might get lucky and you might drop the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's easy ways to punch up using grenades and tank shock.
I love it. All right, so we talked about grenades, we talked about tank shock. Those are all like mortal wounding, like they're very offensive strats. So let's talk about one of the tricky ones, because this one, I don't see it used a lot, but the minute that it is used and used properly, oh man, because it'd be so good.
It's a game winner.
We're talking about heroic intervention. Now, it's changed a lot. So again, if you're one of those people that have been with Warhammer 40K for a while, you've remembered probably a few different forms of heroic intervention. It being a stratagem means you get to pick and choose when it happens. There is a role that goes along with it. So I would be cautious on like exactly, where in the spectrum of this role you really want to sit. But how the strat works is after your opponent has completed a charge move, what takes place is you can elect to spend 2 command points, and you can pick a unit that's within 6 inches of the unit that charged. And then what happens is you effectively make a charge roll against that unit. So you roll 2d6, and you get to move up to that distance to try and base the unit that completed a charge near you. And then so here's the downside to this, because there is a bit of a downside. And this strat has lots of big bonuses. The downside, though, is that you don't get fights first.
No, yeah, and you're still an eligible target. So you might just make a heroic intervention and then immediately get punched.
But sometimes that's what you want.
Just to soak up damage.
Soak up damage.
Or get more bodies on an objective
Yeah.
that you've just lost.
Because a lot of people will charge thinking to themselves, like, okay, I'm going to take my, close combat unit, and a lot of close combat units don't have the highest OC. But I'm going to take my close combat unit, and I'm going to charge onto this objective, and I'm just going to wipe out what's standing on top of it. And once it's wiped out, even though all my, let's say Blade Guard veterans, even though all my Blade Guard veterans have only got 1 OC, it's fine because I'll be the only thing standing on that objective. No, you're no longer the only thing standing on that objective.
Yeah, and it's a great way to rob your opponent of their a tactic that they thought was going to be beneficial for them, trying to steal away an objective.
Yeah.
And it also almost guarantees that you're going to get your points for sitting on that primary.
Which is phenomenal.
So it's a great way. It's expensive at 2 CP.
It is.
But there's a reason why it's expensive. It's because it can win you games.
Yeah.
You can play your army around knowing that you have 2 CP in the pocket to use that. A lot of armies are really good counter defensively. And if you have a big unit of something that you can pile in, go for it.
Yeah. Yep. Go for it. Especially if it has a high OC, right? Especially if it has a high OC that you're guaranteeing, like, oh, you're not going to flip this objective no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm. Or you could just punish your opponent for making a risky charge.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Now, I do have a question for you. So I'm going to challenge you here a little bit.
Okay.
Do you see a scenario where this particular stratagem is good when there isn't an objective on the line? Like, do you only do it when there's an objective, or is there a way that you want to spin it so that, oh, there's no objective here, is it worth the 2 CP?
Yeah, I mean, if this scenario is reversed here, let's say this is the scenario, the aggressors charge Bulbasaur, I heroic intervene with the Redemptor, I have huge advantage against aggressors.
Yeah.
I do flat 3, they do damage 2, I have damage reduction. You want to pick your battles, because they could still swing on you. They don't have to choose the target that they charged.
Yeah.
So if you have a really strong advantage,
Yeah.
I'd say yes. And if you have fights first,
Oh, then it's awesome. Yeah.
any ability of fights first, or a weird combat ability,
Yeah.
like negating somebody's ability to hit in combat, or causing some confusion for your opponent,
Yeah.
battle shocking your opponent so they can't use
Yeah.
stratagems that they want to use. I know there's some demon stuff where once you're finished the charge, you battle shock guys.
That's very good.
All those things start to really compound in not only helping out your army for an exorbitant amount of CP, but really faking out your opponent.
Yeah. Yeah. And it works. And as long as I think what the phrase that you said that rings the most true to me, though, is pick your battles.
Yeah.
As long as you're picking your battles, I think it's good. Because there is a cautionary tale here. For example, I was playing against a friend of mine that plays orcs, and I charged in with Calgar and a bunch of Blade Guard veterans, and I charged into his Mega Knobs. And he thought to himself, okay, I know what I can do. I'm gonna spend 2 CP, and I'm going to heroically intervene with his Death Dread. And he moved the Death Dread into combat. Because he thought to himself, oh, well, they've got power swords, right? Calgar's got good attacks, but I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go for it.
Calgar's way too good.
Calgar's way too good. And so he clicked in, and I was able to pick up, because I charged, I was going first, I was able to pick up the Mega Knobs and the Death Dread in the single attack phase.
Yeah.
And he was like, what have I done? And I'm like, you just lost the game.
Yeah.
Right? So
not only did he lose a unit he didn't have to, he spent 2 CP to do it.
Yeah. It was really bad.
So, yeah, pick your battles if you're going to do heroic intervention.
Yeah.
But make sure you are aware of that tool in the toolbox, because it can be ridiculously strong.
Yeah, it can be. And it can catch you off guard. Like he's a newer player, so like he's still learning the game, and we're doing lots of really fun games here at my place, and I'm really loving playing with him. However, those are the moments he's now learned. That is now it is ingrained into his brain that heroic intervention needs to be done at the right time. You choose your moment.
Yeah.
But when the moment is right, oh baby.
Yeah.
It can be so good.
Thanks everybody for watching a stratagem review. Space Marine Steve, Ian from Hyperspace Hobbies, signing out.
Night.